roll, please. We're on. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Sherborn Board of Selectmen meeting of July 25th, 2013. We'll start as we always do, having our favorite town administrator, David Williams, read the agenda, and we'll see if we have any amendments to that.
All right, thank you. At 6:05, right after this section, we'll have public comment. 6:15, update from Revenue Development Committee. 6:45, consideration of external borrowing. Those are bond anticipation notes. And 6:55, consideration of appointment election worker Robert Whitman for a one-year term. 7 p.m., consideration of town council retainer and continuation with existing town council under another contract. 7:15 p.m., I can say a few things about, under the administrative reports, about the transfer station. And then 7:25, consideration of a consent agenda with approval of minutes, approval of warrants, and setting the date of the next meeting.
Great, thanks. Any amendments to the agenda, gentlemen? Yes, Paul?
Yes, I'd like to put on here somewhere an acknowledgement of the contributions that Doug Cassell has made. He's put together this administrative history of Farm Pond and all kinds of documents which are now online. The guy's put in a lot of hours and a lot of time. So I think we should maybe accept it and
Okay.
and his volunteer service, and at least acknowledge the incredible effort that he's put in.
Great, and you can describe that further when we do that. So how about we include that in the consideration of consent agenda section, Paul, which we may be bumping things around depending on time
Great.
frames. Okay, so we'll add that, if approved. Mike, do you have any other amendments
No,
that you'd like?
that's fine.
So I'll take a motion to accept the amended agenda there.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Great. Okay, off we go to the races. Is there any public comment this evening? No, not so far. Great, well, we'll fill in then.
Already ahead of schedule, Peter, that's good.
We are moving along, gentlemen. And I know that Revenue Development Committee is on for 6:15. You might want us to wait a little bit, depending upon some of your other members showing up. So we have other items on the agenda that we can move around. How about we start with the consideration of consent items, moving at the end of the
Okay.
agenda here. Do we have minutes that we wanted to
We have
approve?
no minutes.
No, I didn't think so. We don't have a warrant either, do we?
We have the payroll warrant, which is the off-week
Okay.
payroll warrant.
I don't know. Did you get a
I haven't
chance to
seen
look at
that.
that? I haven't seen that. Can we do that then in the fashion we just did the last one, rather than approve it tonight?
Right.
Allow us
Yeah.
to take a look
Yeah.
at it later?
Have you reviewed it, David, or?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on standard off week. There were 3 or 4 individuals who went over 20 hours.
Well, we had explanation of the one we've
They
been
were
concerned
expected.
about, so I think that made sense.
Satisfied with the
Yeah.
explanation?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So-
That was one, yeah, from the clerk's office.
Right.
There were 2 at the library due to vacations, so students filling in happen to go above the 20. But,
But they're not on a recurring
anything,
or
no,
any
no.
frequency whatsoever, so that's not an issue. Yeah.
no, so we can do that.
So unless you want to approve it tonight, I just didn't have a chance to look at it.
Let's look at it.
And then do what we normally do. And
How about approving it subject to
I was looking for that solution, yes.
any objection by any member holding any?
Upon their review, great.
Second.
Okay, all in favor on that approach? Great, thanks. Next meeting you want to talk about, David? Whether we would have one next week that would be a large warrant, yes? No.
I don't foresee any large warrant for next
No.
week, but we could have the discussion of the public safety residency requirements.
Yep,
The chief would be, I believe the chief would come in on and talk about that.
okay.
But I don't have anything
Nothing.
major lined up for that
Okay.
meeting.
Have we, Diane's not here, but I know that she's bumped a few folks around over time here that we might use that as a filler, or we
Okay.
may get to early next week and decide that there's not enough to have a meeting
So
and
we,
put it off for 2 weeks, you know,
so we will know.
Monday,
Noon Monday.
noon time. Okay, how's that sound, whether we're
Sure.
having a Thursday night meeting? You good with that, Paul? But you're available next Thursday night if in fact we
I
have.
would-
Okay, great,
I mean, there's no reason that discussion couldn't get bumped to the 8th,
right.
if need be.
David, to follow up on something we had an exchange on earlier in the week, and it doesn't have to be for next meeting, but it would be good to get your thoughts on standards for town employees taking continuing education or training courses, either related to or only tangentially related to their duties in town, to have
Yeah.
some standards for those and some limits on those and some approval process for those.
Okay.
That's good. Right. And
Yeah,
can
let-
you follow up, David, because I think at some point we're going to have to put them in. We had done that Wildlife Management Committee, and I forget what the date was, and then they were supposed to report back to
It
us.
was
by a
July
certain date.
1.
Okay, so
and
we're,
They didn't meet almost I believe the whole month of June, and I've told them that they got to
Okay.
bring the plan in. There's no plan to bring in right now,
Oh.
so we're only going to be able to bring in the people and decide if you want to
do anything.
re-up that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I was trying to take care of them and looking at all of those committees, like some of those that need to
Yes.
be sunset or potentially combined into a public safety.
What happened? They
type.
were all gung-ho at the beginning.
I don't know. There's no plan. I mean, I would have to defer to them to come in and explain what they think happened. But I know that they weren't meeting in June and haven't met very much lately. But
All right, and our charter or charge to them was to come back to us by July, was what we had said?
July 1 with
With
a
a wildlife
management
management
plan
plan.
for review
Okay.
to decide whether you want to re-up the committee or they're gone and you move on with the plan.
So
I
why don't
just-
why don't we put the discussion of re-upping them or, you know, carrying them forward? I guess they would carry forward anyway, absent action on our part.
Right.
Okay.
And
But you're in communication with them and so forth.
yeah,
to a
one
degree.
thing that surprised me is I was hoping to refer to that plan to deal with some of the beaver issues on whether they're town property or residence property.
Right.
And they weren't even, they weren't looking at that issue at all, and it wasn't going to be part of the management plan.
But I
So-
think their charge was to deal with town forest as opposed to the broader perspective, see, so that may be.
In the charge I
recollection.
saw, it didn't specifically say
Okay.
town forest,
All right.
but,
Okay, well, so we won't discuss that too much tonight. Yeah. Great. We'll keep moving along. How about your administrative reports, David? So we've just covered one whole group
yeah,
of
the,
items.
the only thing I was going to talk about was the transfer station. And I was up there today with Carol, and we were talking to possibly a new entity of doing some hauling for us and taking some of the recyclables out. And Carol and I talked about the new containers coming in. We got some revised quotes on that, get some lower prices. There might be some more savings on that.
Right.
And getting the fence done, we need one more quote for the fence. But the biggest thing is the paving. So what was approved was an overlay, which we could do. But for probably, I'm guessing with the estimates that we've been looking at from a couple of contractors coming in, for another 25 or 30, we could have an engineering design and a drainage plan and have,
Therefore, a much more permanent solution than the overlay,
Right.
the 2-inch overlay or whatever it was. that-
right. It might end up
approved at
being the
town
same
meeting.
thickness of overlay,
Yep,
but,
they'd go deeper to make the
You would-
foundation of it.
right, you'd get a
In the
you know,
drainage, as
a
you
longer
said.
lasting product if it was draining correctly. And talking to Carol Rubenstein, she feels we'd hate to spend 50 grand and then be back 2 years from now doing the same thing. So we want a little bit of time to explore that with Norfolk Ram of how much digging can take place and how much is considered the cap
Yep.
up there. And then the immediate solution is, I've asked Ed to get in there and fill those potholes and take
So
responsibility for
level
the
out the
drive.
surface a bit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so people won't trip and cars won't lose their,
Yeah, I mean, there are orange cones and barrels in there trying to steer cars around the pits that are there.
Yep.
But to my knowledge, nothing's really been done to refill those holes in a year or so.
all right, so you're exploring what the right thing to do is, and then you'll come back to us, given that town meeting approved a finite amount, and it sounds like it needs to be finite plus X.
But I can get to that dollar amount, which right now I'm estimating
20 to 30.
75 to 80,000.
Okay.
We already have 50,000 appropriated. It's
To take
where's
action,
the
we have
rest
to
of that?
find other money.
Yeah, where's the rest of it coming from?
This scares me a little bit because good is the enemy of perfect, or perfect is the enemy of good.
Mm.
That anything we do, we can always find more or better. But here, there are some underlying issues that the pavement works as a cap on,
Mhm.
deposited waste.
Mhm.
Cap has to be maintained. Right now, we would be in violation, and would be cited with all kinds of penalties. So this, so many projects end up spending so much time in thinking and thinking and thinking and trying to make it better, that sometimes you go with the good.
Well, I mean, I can go forward with what was approved and get it done, and then see how it goes. But I was trying to see if it could be
It sounds like there's some more
a better
facts
product.
to
but-
flesh out here a little bit in terms of what we understood we were doing along what Paul's talking about and its adequacy versus what now we're thinking.
Right, but I would
They were
just be,
thinking what we're thinking.
if I didn't tell you that
Yes.
the contractors are saying it will likely be falling, it could be falling apart next spring if they paved it now without
I knew
some
that a
of
year
those.
ago.
Well, I didn't, I
And we also considered the fact of drainage, and we can't dig. And we can't, I mean, there are limits on what we can do.
Mhm.
I think David said he was going to get Norfolk Ram to explain those limits or clarify.
Right, there's some, you know, can the surface of that up there right now be I think they call it scarified? Or can it actually be reclaimed, ground up, and used? You know, what are the limits on that? I think everyone's been proceeding that they can't touch that cap that's there, but there are plenty of instances where people have had to replace the complete cap on a site. So I wanted to get for sure an answer from Norfolk Ram, what can and can't be done there, because I've only heard what can and can't be done there. So I haven't seen any actual report from them saying what the limitations are.
I don't think we can say we're in violation or that we're subject to enforcement or fines. That's not the case. We need to just fix the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't have an appreciation for the short-term durability of what we voted on at town meeting. So the
Well-
more facts you flesh out, the better, I think, to make the final decision, because we do want to take action sooner than later, and
Right.
I'm sure we're up against weather windows and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
too.
You know, I can see what we have pulled together for the next meeting, and then
Okay.
if the information's not pulled together, then you can decide to pull the trigger on just capping it, or,
Or delay another meeting until we have more
Yeah.
information.
I think it's certainly important to get things filled so people are safe up there and
Yeah.
cars aren't playing dodgeball.
right, right.
Right?
I mean,
It's-
if,
The idea?
yeah, yeah. But I mean, if we can find,
But one of the vendors that quoted us before is now saying something different, and that's, or the scope of what they're talking about is different, and I'm not sure I quite
yeah, I think if we were.
connect those two dots yet, so that's part of what I hope you get.
Yeah, and then that's what I had been talking with Carol, and
Yeah.
she had been dealing with the recycling committee over the last few weeks, and we resolved the differences between the quotes that she had received a year or two ago compared to the quote that we received from the existing town vendor.
Well, her
So-
quotes were back in February.
Right, and she was, yeah. But there's still quotes, and there's a project this size that would
Understand.
have to be put out to bid if we were going to be
Yeah.
going with
Yeah,
the non-vendor
okay.
that was awarded by the
Right.
MAPC.
Well, it's in good hands because it's in your hands, so that's good to know.
We're trying.
I just add that we should have some deadline to all of this thinking and checking,
Yeah, I think that would be good. Right,
so that this project gets done by Labor Day.
yeah.
So we need to know within 2 weeks, I think, Paul, right? Wouldn't you say? By
Right.
the, yeah. Be prepared to make a decision within 2 weeks based on
If we can't
the
nail down
information you have, yeah.
a design cost, project cost, and what it would really take. I mean, if the numbers start going up, then you get your answer, but,
And it's a balance. I mean, I appreciate Paul's urgency on this, but it's also, you don't want to ever push maintenance down the road that could be done right now, so we don't have to touch it, for 10 years instead of 5 years, or whatever the number is.
right, right. I think if you were holding out to get a contractor to guarantee a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I think we'd be looking a long time to find a contractor that would make
No,
that
not
guarantee.
guarantees, just
Yeah.
in terms of the extent of the work and the level of the work and the kind of drainage you'd put in and so forth.
Right.
Yeah, good. So 2 weeks is our goal here and
Yeah.
objective.
Yeah, and Carol
Down.
believes
sooner.
that's the way to go, and Ron believed that it was,
Ron Buckler at the
yeah, that the,
transfer station.
that the issue right now is all that water goes,
The drainage.
yeah, in one direction.
All right,
I don't know if that's good or bad.
great. Anything else on your list of,
No, but I'll schedule them to be at that meeting as well, the recycling committee.
great idea. Great. How are you? So you guys good to go?
Well, before, just one
Sure,
more
before
thing
we go.
for him to
Yep.
think about. Every year, it's been traditional for the Board of Selectmen to review with the CM&D director the road projects for the upcoming year. And so far, the Chapter 90 stuff has been unsettled, but it looks like it's going to break, that we're going to get our 300 million.
Okay.
So based on the 300 million, could you have him do our full share and come up with how he would want to spend the money and present it to the board sometime before the construction season is over, which means basically our next
Retroactively.
meeting?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll inform Ed to bring a presentation that night about what work's going on.
Yeah, have him assume full funding.
Okay.
Great.
So I believe the governor's going to withdraw his 50% hold. He's going to
Okay.
release the other 50%.
Okay.
At least I've been begging him to do that, and I think he will.
Doesn't hurt to beg.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go with our update from the Revenue Development Committee, and we'll circle back, Paul, on the Doug Cassell acknowledgement afterwards. Oh, my goodness.
Big, thick
I
report.
don't think there's room in my briefcase here for this.
Give us 5 minutes to read this.
Perfect timing.
Great. So you're gonna walk through what you've just handed out,
Yeah, you don't have
basically?
to.
So we don't have to read it?
You don't have to read
too
it.
hard, but-
I'll walk you through it if you like.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay.
And first, just introduce, so you
Yeah.
guys are the aptly named Revenue Development Committee, formerly the, I don't remember what it was, Levitation
That
Committee,
was
there
our
you
first
go.
official act, was to change the name.
Yes,
George, start. Introduce yourself to them.
George, yeah,
And I'm John Edgar.
I'm Terrence Driscoll from 58 Old Orchard Road. Ed McGuire, although it says Ed O'Brien.
Ed, your hair's growing in. Your hair's growing in, and I'm jealous, I just have to say. That's good.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for the opportunity to serve on this committee, and we relish the opportunity to change the name. Revenue Development, we are. We were charged a year ago, just about a year ago, to develop some ideas for generating some revenue for the town, because I think we need some. After exploring the existing revenue-producing assets of the town, including the downtown, commercial area, Peace Abbey, and Woodhaven, our committee settled on exploring the idea of providing housing for residents who would be interested in downsizing from individual homes. In particular, this would provide an option for residents of senior age who do not wish to move out of town for the benefit of lower tax burden, or those who might just no longer require a large home, empty nesters. Two developers showed interest in the possibility of building such housing, either using the town forest land or property owned by Mr. Ken Gray and his family. Pulte Homes, a national home development firm, proposed building a 46 townhouse community on 70 acres of land owned by the Grays at 90 Maple Street. Verbally, the committee related to the Pulte representative the requirement that this development was to look like Sherborn, meaning to respect and maintain the existing country atmosphere, also to do minimal tree removal, and to move any walking trail or horse trail that may be in the way of the project. Eventually, the Pulte Company signed an agreement with the Grays to purchase that parcel of land, and that agreement should be signed this week. We recognize that any construction of the proposed townhouses is still subject to all approvals and boards that are necessary in Sherborn.
Is that this map?
That is that map? Yes. There's some other information that I've provided along the way that hopefully is helpful in looking at the situation that we're talking about.
How many townhouses did you say?
46. It's a 70-acre parcel. The amount of land that circle you see would be approximately 25. The remaining acreage would remain wooded and untouched.
Were these age restricted or any age?
In talking with Pulte, they have not asked for age restriction consideration. I think, I can't speak for them, but I believe that they are preferring to go without age restriction. There's been no discussion of anything other than that.
How many bedrooms?
There'd be 2 bedrooms per townhouse, master bedroom on the first floor.
Their design.
Design.
Their design is for a senior, even if they weren't age restricted, they're targeting the
Right.
senior market. That's their design home.
We raised the issue that you're alluding to. They said that they have had enough experience that while it doesn't preclude any children coming into that development, it certainly discourages, and they have had other situations similar to this proposal, and it has worked in that way. So children are not encouraged by virtue of the design of the units. And the older folks like the bedroom, the master on the first floor, and that's what it has.
And I think to call them a townhouse might be in disservice. They really are, at least the way it was described, a separate.
I think they're 2 together.
Yeah,
Right, but.
duplexes. really.
Duplex,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
it is.
Okay,
Townhouse has a certain.
Okay,
connotation.
all right, that's
Sorry,
fine.
maybe, yeah.
And
There
then
is-
Obviously, as you said, it's still very preliminary.
Yes.
It's something that has to go through the whole
Right.
town for approval and
Yep.
and all that, but.
Any other questions regarding the,
I was just trying to assess the impact on the schools. I mean, sometimes when you look at what tax revenue might be generated by a development, if it means you have to buy a new school and teachers and all the rest.
We're sensitive to that.
Losing proposition. So I was just
Sensitive to
concerned.
that. The tax benefits, I have the tax bill that is billed on 90 Maple Street to Marion P. Gray. They pay $12,000 a year. Because that, like a number of other properties in town, that's what all of this is. It tells you about all of the parcels in town that are in no tax or reduced tax categories in all of the categories. There's a lot. 48% of our town is in no tax or reduced tax category. This will take a $12,000 a year property, tax-wise, and put it up above $400,000 in tax revenue to the town. There should be, according to Pulte, minimal impact on the schools, and our Pine Hill is down, yeah, if any, and Pine Hill is down 100 students over the last 3 years or 4 years. They're down 100 students, so the plan is there if there were a few children.
Has the committee looked into any other impacts on the road, whether improvements would be needed to the intersection down here on Maple Street and Main Street, or anything else?
We have not done
I
that.
think that detail comes when you get into the planning
Yeah,
board and
yeah,
that kind of, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
That certainly has to be looked at, I totally agree. But no, we have not done it. We've looked, we were taken with the,
It's probably too early for Pulte to tell you that stuff.
so.
They're still trying to get it under agreement.
Mhm.
The lawyers have done their work, and what I'm told, and it's just a matter of signing it.
And just explain your involvement, your committee's involvement in this transaction between a resident and Pulte.
Okay? We have no involvement beyond introducing them. Back in December, one rainy, like today, like tonight is a very rainy Friday afternoon, I took the Pulte representative to Lake Street and 16 to the town forest. One of the other members who unfortunately has resigned, had to resign, and we're going to miss him, Mark Forcelli, took Brendan Home representative and showed him town forest. He did not get a chance to show him the 90 Maple Street site. I did. I showed Pulte that, and he looked no further. He liked it, had no interest in the town forest, and that's the last time I have had anything, well, that isn't quite right. He called me, the Pulte representative called me and said, the Gray family has some concerns. Would you go and meet with the family and me? And I said, sure. So one early May day, I think it was, we sat out in the yard where all the wood is piled, the firewood, on some beach chairs, and I met a sister, a brother, and the main brother who's involved, Ken, and answered their concerns, which really were not concerns in the sense of what kind of a deal is it, can we get more money, whatever. It was concerns about selling their family homestead. It was an emotional issue for them, and mom's ashes are on this side, dad's ashes are on that side, so they were very torn about whether to do it or not. Having said that, the other brother, not Ken, the other brother, whose name escapes me, said, this is good. This is really good, because this is killing us. We have to get out from under this tax burden that we have. So this is really good. It's very timely. And that's the last time. This committee has, I don't even know anything about the deal. I don't know the price. I don't know
Right.
any
Yep.
detail whatsoever. Thank you for asking that question.
Sure, I just was
because-
curious. So your Revenue Development Committee met, introduced a developer to Sherborn and showed him an available, well, you must know an available parcel or potentially available parcel.
I believe that parcel had been looked at previously. They had had other offers on it.
Okay,
This is secondhand or third-hand knowledge.
sure.
But we introduced them, and obviously Pulte has the resources to handle purchasing the property and putting in whatever is approved by the town in the way of a development.
And so assuming that some of the things that you think are the case, that by the nature of the design they're talking about, and the type of purchaser of the individual units that they might attract and the taxes they would pay, that they will likely wind up with a senior market, and therefore you're pretty comfortable with the no or low impact as far as school children population increase.
We were assured that that's the case, yes.
And I mean, when it comes to approvals from the town, if, to be 100% sure, you could put an age restriction on it.
Right.
You know, it's not, I mean, that's still out there because it's not anything that's approved or
Right.
moved to that stage. So there's always that option for the town,
Yeah.
because then you're really having no impact on the schools if it's age restricted. It just may not make it as attractive to the developer if they think it's gonna take that much longer to sell.
How many acres are here?
There's 78 acres total. 25 would be impacted by that circle that you see.
And how do we know that Pulte is gonna actually do this with the property and not put up 60 single-family homes once they purchase it? Are the Grays restricting the purchase?
I know nothing about what the Grays are trying to restrict or not. This is what Pulte has showed us and talked about.
That's what I'd show you too, if I was gonna buy a piece of property and wanted your support.
Well,
They
we're
could
not-
probably, they could probably by
okay,
right
they're
build
not gonna
70
get our
houses
support
there.
if that's what they,
If they changed it, so.
Yeah, but I mean, but I'm saying they can probably build a subdivision there too.
If it's approved.
Yeah,
we wouldn't support that.
okay.
Because we know that this is going to have steps along the way that are going to have to be met. And what we talked about is what we would support, and we would not work with them or for them on their behalf if they're changing the stakes in the middle of the game.
Okay.
We're in this for the benefit, we're looking at this for the benefit of Sherborn, and we have no other agenda,
Oh,
period.
I don't think you would, yeah.
The thing about doing business with them, there are a lot of companies that are big enough, but I didn't want Dover replicated in Sherborn. Dover has two developments. One is Dover Commons and the other is Dover Farms. Both of those entered the market as age-restricted, 55 and over. They both went bankrupt. They both came to the town and said, for us to proceed with this, rather than leaving it in the infancy stage, not completed, we need to get out from under that restriction. The town granted them that, and now it's open to any age buyer, and both of those now are proceeding and being built out. So we did not want the same thing that happened to Dover to be replicated here. So it has not been talked about for it to be age-restricted at this point, for that reason.
I can see developmental issues like the septic systems here. Does this land perk, has all of that been done? But those are all regulatory issues.
Right.
I understand your function is to suggest that more revenue could be produced for the community by more intense use of some of the properties.
Right.
I understand the logic of going from a piece of property that produces $12,000 of revenue to a piece of property that produces $400. There are many in the town who feel that the character of the town is worth paying high taxes for, the sort of the rural character. So the question is, how many of these can we have in the community before the character of the community changes? But certainly another $400,000 of revenue would go a long way to relieving the pressure on the property taxes that we are all facing.
Well, and as John said, I mean, we made it clear for us to support a project, it needs to fit the character of Sherborn, and it needs to be, like you said, limited tree removal, and it really has to have the feel of the town. We would never support a developer that's gonna come in and put up a development like you mentioned, just because it's not in the character of Sherborn. And that's not we have to do smart revenue development, not just revenue development.
It'll be interesting to see what Pulte can show us about other projects they've done that preserve character.
Right. And I'm sure that they would be happy to show us the design of the homes that are not children-friendly, that have proven to be.
A lot of open outlets and things like that, so they,
No railings on the staircase.
Okay, okay.
Great, okay,
Okay?
yeah.
So the backup information is just for,
Okay.
so you have something to read on Sunday morning when you're not reading the paper.
but these are, you've literally been able to get all the tax reduced or tax exempt parcels identified.
They're all here.
Good.
Conservation Committee, Recreation, Charity, Rural Land and Trustees, Federal Government, Mixed Use, Selectmen Controlled, Local School, Agriculture, Forestry, they're all there. There's 4,900 acres in Sherborn under these programs with reduced tax or no tax.
Well, on one category you have here is Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Correct.
And those of us who are active on the state level have fought for and obtained what are called pilot payments by the state to every community for state-owned land.
Uh-huh.
And so the town of Sherborn now gets a payment in lieu of taxes from the Commonwealth. Now, the legislature each year decides how much that's going to be, pretty much. But it is cash, and it does come to the town.
Mhm.
And it has been increasing every year for the last couple of years.
Good.
So it's not, state land is not zero. There is money that comes with it.
Yeah, this is interesting. You got federal land and all sorts of stuff. This will be some good late-night reading. And you get this from the assessor's office here in town?
Yes, I
or-
did.
Yeah. And
It's
so
public
she-
information.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
The other project we worked on, I think you all got the report that we prepared, it's in regards to Woodhaven.
Yeah, so let's just first be mindful. I'll use the example of my mother, okay? My mother passed away over a year ago. She used to get her taxes done by a friend of mine, Tommy Anderson, CPA. And one year, she didn't have her information pulled together. So I said, Ma, he'll give you an extension, he'll do an extension for you. That got her all worked up. It was a whole new concept for her that she just didn't comprehend. So we certainly have to be mindful of folks when we talk about what I think you're gonna talk about here, what you sent us, that, we don't want people to get upset. We're just having a discussion about something you guys are considering looking at and having a discussion about, but there's no change imminent. We're not trying to make any decisions. We're not, and any change, to the extent there ever was change, which would be far down the road, if anything, would probably be a seamless thing to a person that was a tenant in a facility anyway, correct?
Correct.
So, okay.
We were
So I
just
wanna
asked to
lay
look at
that
the assets.
groundwork out.
We don't have any industrial space in town. The downtown was being looked at by the planning board, so we took a hands-off to what was going on down there. The Peace Abbey property was being looked at and
in play,
purchased
yeah,
by
yeah.
Mr. Murchison. So the two things that we had left that were assets were unopened, undeveloped land
Yeah,
and Woodhaven.
great,
So that was
So
our
I'll be
job, that
interested-
was our
So I
charge.
just- And I prepared this report
good.
based on, I work in real estate finance, and I just, can look at the value of property, and just wanted to see what the options that the town has. The options are obviously either hold Woodhaven and keep it going the way we are, or to sell it. There's
Right.
two options.
Right.
So what I did is I looked at what revenue and expenses the property's generating now, and I know there's ongoing repairs which are going to bring it to a more stabilized level over the next few years. So I based these assumptions on getting to that stabilized level. So first I looked at a hold strategy that showed, this is how much gross revenue they're gonna have. I think one thing.
So when you say, I'm sorry, but when you, if I could interrupt
Yeah,
you.
please
and,
interrupt.
So when you say stabilized rent, what you're talking about is that the units have been upgraded.
Yes.
And the rent on upgraded units, which you presume would be something higher than what they're getting now.
Right.
And you've considered that, because I always found Woodhaven confusing, because they talk about rent, and they talk about maintenance fees, and the two are really rent at the end of the day, you could argue. I presume that's what you mean.
This is based on the rental revenue, and we're kind of need some help from giving us some information as to what's out there, and the difference between the rent on improved units versus ones
Versus
that have not
the,
been
that need
improved. So
improvement, understood.
we took this and said,
Gotcha.
if they're all improved, on a two-bedroom unit, there would be, you could get $1,200
Additional
a month,
rent, yeah,
and on one-bedroom units, you could get $1,100 a month.
okay.
And that's based on market study or?
That's based on what they're getting on the improved units already.
Gotcha.
That's what they're getting now, so.
And,
And these are all income restricted, correct? I think,
no,
they're not,
no.
okay.
There's no income problem there. But our restriction is on, I believe, and George, you can help me on this, it's 85% of the HUD
Right.
fee.
So it is based on.
So some restriction,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's all affordable,
But what-
affordable housing.
But just to
Do you
clarify.
have this report?
I do hear it, but I can't, okay, I do, it's in my computer.
Okay, and we're not, I don't want to derail, but I just want to clarify, because again, I get confused between rent and the maintenance piece. He's just talking the rent,
Right.
yes? Not the maintenance, or he's talking the combined?
Combined.
Okay, so you are talking the combined.
I guess.
Okay, great.
So we looked at that and then assumed, this is just on the first, I looked at the hold strategy. If we had a 5% vacancy,
Yep,
operating expenses based on what other I looked at other properties that are of a similar size that are senior housing, and kind of the expenses that are at Woodhaven are right in line with what they should be. The one thing that Woodhaven does not do now, which every property should, is to have an ongoing replacement reserve. So they don't have to come to town meeting every time they need repairs. There's a replacement reserve building up.
but just to clarify, I mean, Woodhaven used to do something different than it's currently doing now, where I think we're into the second year of what I would call a pseudo-enterprise fund approach, where they're paying the town for essentially, the effort was to determine the full cost of what it is and reimburse the town. So there's I don't know if you call it a pilot thing, but
It's a pilot.
but it's effectively a pilot that you're paying to cover insurance that the town pays for and administrative support and so forth.
We pay our insurance bill and we
Yeah,
pay the C&D bill.
and we're into the second year of that. And you got the $500,000 approval at recent town meeting for these upgrades to all these things. So at least they're not coming back, or 600,
Which
whatever.
they are, and then they're paying the bond on
Yeah.
that through the revenue from
Yeah.
the.
And if I can just give a little bit of background, when the town, or when the residents, who in essence have paid the bond issue from the beginning, when that finished, then there became a great deal of six-figure numbers available to the town, and the town used that to offset other expenses. Therefore, the Woodhaven never had the chance to build up this fund so that they wouldn't have to do it.
Right.
And we all agreed that this is what we would like to see happen, but we've got 15 years to pay off this bond.
Oh, absolutely. I
Right.
mean, and.
But that's good common sense to do that.
To have a replacement reserve.
Yeah, the money was going into the free cash, basically,
Right,
the
right,
surplus
that's right.
that they were generating went into free cash.
Should I suggest we let him
Yep.
at least lay out the theory, so before he's kind of running down the runway and we're
So anyway,
taking shots at him?
Yeah, I'm not taking shots, I'm just trying to clarify
the,
my
the
understanding. what
plain
you're
air.
So what I came up with, an estimate that, once this is stabilized, after they pay their bond, it would return net cash flow to the town of about $65,000 a year. On a sell strategy, you look at that same net operating income of $137,400 is what I estimated, and the market cap rates for an age-restricted, affordable housing, I mean, are a little higher than what a stabilized apartment complex would be, so they'd be in the 7 to 10 rate. The cap rates, just for people's knowledge, is what the market rate that the rate of return the buyer can expect for an asset. So the price they pay is gonna return a certain return to them. So what I did is I said, okay, if we had a range of 7 to 10% for a cap rate that somebody's willing to pay, so they're willing to take a 7 or 10% return. Market rate stabilized apartments are currently trading at 5% cap rates. We could sell the asset today for, at a 10 cap, which is probably the highest cap rate, so the lowest price would be $1.3 million, or 1.374, and a 7% cap rate would be close to $2 million.
And what's our bond on that? What would it cost to pay off the bond?
Do you know what the total bond is? I
The
don't.
total bond, probably, if you add the prior year's bond issues that we are also paying off, I think we're over 600,000.
Okay.
And,
So that comes off the
Yeah,
top.
that comes off,
Closer to
yeah,
seven.
you'd have to pay off the bond on it. But you'd also then, going forward, you'd have.
Tax revenue.
You'd have the tax revenue of up to $40,000 a year. So you're making less annually than you would if it's stabilized and holding it, but you're gonna have a big chunk when you sell it.
Yeah,
That
and-
you can.
And do we, David, did you figure out, do we ever find out what the assessed value is of Woodhaven?
I don't have that.
And/or there's also the gap, the counting carrying cost?
It's been reassessed since the remodeling has taken place, and Yvonne has that figure.
All right, so I just out of curiosity, compared to what what we're carrying it at, either on the town's books as well as assessed value, I just, as comparison to this
Right.
selling number you have, would be
So,
interesting.
so when I went through this analysis, I presented it to our committee, and we recommended that we look further into a sale of Woodhaven, because I think the town could use a
Jolt
if you
of
got up to-
cash.
If you got up to $2 million, and after the bond, you have 1.4 million,
Right.
that you could then, one thing we looked at, and this is something a little different, but you could use it for other revenue development opportunities.
Yeah.
I know there's, a lot of people have talked about water and sewer for the downtown to be able to develop that area a little bit. There's things you could use that money for smartly to help continue the revenue growth of the town.
Right.
And then also the property would be, I think it's actually would be run better for the residents by a real estate professional who does this in many communities, and not just a town-run facility. That this isn't what the town's in the business of doing, is running a senior housing complex.
So this could, well, I
Go ahead.
think we do
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
professional management there, though, right?
Yes.
This is, it could be restrictions or conditions put on a sale, right?
Yeah, you could, that's what I would recommend, that you put the conditions that it has to remain affordable. It has to meet the affordable recommendations from HUD. It has to.
The lease conditions would continue as is, essentially.
Yeah,
other
exactly.
than
It's age
further lease
restricted and
agreements.
income restricted.
Yeah, so that would be seamless to the residents, should
Yeah,
this ever
exactly.
go forward.
And then, are there examples, I think there probably are, from other communities that probably be helpful to understand what the experience after a period of time other communities have had that have tried this? I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
some have
I
tried
don't
this
know
or
how
done
many-
this.
I don't think a lot of towns actually own their facilities. I think in many communities, you have a developer who runs the senior, it's a privately run operation. I'd have to do some research to find towns that do own their own facilities. And if any towns have sold it, you're right, we should do some research on that.
I just think
see
it
if
would
there is
be
anything out there.
Illustrative, yeah.
That's a good question.
Paul, do you have any questions or comments or thoughts on this
Get somebody in the
discussion?
audience
And
with a
then we'll
question.
get to the audience.
Well,
Don't you worry.
I learned when I came in here that the people who are most knowledgeable about Woodhaven haven't had a chance to review this report and to provide feedback, because I'm very much interested in the reaction from those who are, the feet on the ground, if you will, who are working with this, who have been working with this for some time. Does privatizing it make sense? And so now that you've introduced that concept, I hope this document can be made available to everybody. And with that, we'd like to get some feedback, but not put anybody on the spot right now to respond to it, but let that percolate and get your considered judgment.
May I just say one comment here? I believe the committee was presenting the report to you, and then it was to come out from you.
Because our
Yes.
mission is to
They
report
are
to
report
you
to us, yeah.
before we,
No, appreciate it.
before we, release it to the public, we want to, present it to the Board of Selectmen.
And I think one of the key things, John, framed this by saying, we wanted to look here, we looked here, but that's already being addressed on one fashion, so where else can you go? This was one place to give serious consideration, and it's not a new consideration per se. I'm sure, I saw George's hand up if you had some background, because you're quite familiar with Woodhaven, and I'm sure you have some comments about what we're talking about this evening.
Well, I'd only like to remind the board that the proposed, a proposal to sell Woodhaven has been on the table for as long as I've been involved with Woodhaven. That's at least 6 years, and it's my understanding that it was on the table when the bond was paid off, and that was 15 years ago. The telling factor, the controlling factor in the town's thinking in the prior proposals was that once it becomes private, it then becomes subject to the federal regulations of HUD, et cetera. And once those regulations are in place, your ability to give priority to Sherborn residents with parents who would like to live there will be either severely restricted or eliminated. Given that, and given the original intention of putting up Woodhaven, which was to restrict it by way of preference to residents, people who had connection with residents, and then to the general public, it seems to me that this would be inconsistent with the original plan and would be inconsistent with the rejection of the sale plan over the last 15 years. So I'd ask you to take that into consideration. I would also suggest to you that while the tax sounds terrific, the future is something that we can speculate about, and the tax is a speculation, obviously. But if it fell into the level of disrepair that it was when we first started doing it, your tax revenue will go down substantially because nobody would have moved. We had serious problems trying to resolve tenancy problem there. At the time that the $500,000 was voted, we had 5 empty apartments on a 24. We have a waiting list currently. The reason we have a waiting list is because money was plowed back into the facility, and that has limited whatever the facility could give to the town. Private ownership is, I wouldn't put it in the same category as the landlord or the movie, but they have a profit line that they have to make, and I'm sure that where it's nonprofit, we can pour the money back into the facility as needed, and maybe even in advance of need. The private sector, I don't think, will be quite that willing to engage in reducing their profit. So I would urge you to take all of that into consideration before you make any final decision. And I would ask you to ask the Revenue Committee to explore those questions.
issues, yeah.
Well, again, I'd like to see the report go to the Woodhaven
And we can put it on the
Committee.
town website.
and to maybe the Council on Aging, and maybe to every town board or committee that might have, the planning board might have some comments on it. There may be other boards and committees that would have comments on it. So we're a long way from making a decision.
I'm not sure, and I would ask the board to explore. I'm not sure of the process or the authority of the town to sell the property.
I think we need a town meeting vote, wouldn't we?
I would imagine
Sell the
so.
asset?
Yeah, I would imagine
And it's a 2/3 vote, as I understand it. And there are some restrictions on the transfer of the property because it was a town forest, and you had to get special legislation to move it from town forest to the current use. And so that may be another complication I would ask you to look into.
Well, they put a suggestion on the table. They're looking at it with a fresh face, if I could speak for you a little bit. And the scope of what they were doing wasn't to flesh out all of the challenges, because there's certainly many before one would go forward. This is, they're saying, geez, we're a committee, we're charged with trying to find additional revenues for the town that are, hopefully the revenues are greater than the costs that might be incurred in creating those revenues. And this is one of the areas that was most obvious to look at. So I think that's a good conversation. No.
Those last two questions are town council's.
Yes.
I don't have access to it.
Yes. Kitty, yes, some more thoughts.
I don't think it hurts to do a project that they have just done. I have spent the afternoon in a folder about that thick of Nancy Labash's papers that were forwarded to me. A lot of dust, but this went on back in the 90s, reviewing whether this was the time to sell Woodhaven. But I would love the town to continue to think that we have provided housing for residents of Sherborn, their parents. Yes, we have people who have come from outside Sherborn, but they are now part of our community. And you have a very vibrant group of men and women down there. And let me tell you, more men are coming in there than they are women, which is very exciting for the single ladies. Anyway, and we have a resident who is just about to celebrate her 100th birthday. She is an original resident of the facility. But yes, the money would be great to have in our coffers, but is that the real thing Sherborn wants? Do we want to continue this pledge we made to provide housing for our seniors? And I hope that will win out in the end. But I learned a lot today in the package of papers I read. But I appreciate your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to these
Yes,
questions?
I'd like a copy of the proposal on the previous discussion.
Was the previous discussion?
This,
Yes.
Sure. I'll see.
I have a question about the stack of town property that you assembled, or tax exempt property.
Yeah.
Most of the communities that I work for have what they call yard sale programs. These are programs by which they sell slivers of land to next door neighbors to become part of their yard, with restrictions that it will never be used for subdivision or further divided in any way. And every year they sell a bunch of these little slivers, and that provides a steady flow of capital dollars that can be used to buy other land or make improvements or whatever. And I wonder, when you went through all of these sheets here of property, particularly under the control of the Board of Selectmen, which seems to be the thickest stack.
Right.
Did anything come to your attention that might suggest that we ought to be looking at disposing of any public land like that?
Well, honestly, I was not interested in the detail. I was interested in the net effect. When I realized that 48% of the town is in one of these categories or another, I thought that was a really substantial amount. I checked with Dover, and Dover is 38%. They have plenty of public lands as well, but I didn't get into the details. I didn't get into the weeds. I don't know anything about your yard sale concept at all.
John, do you remember when I showed you those I looked
Yes,
at the maps
right.
and identified some of these parcels. And I think that's a terrific idea, Paul. I think to identify certain parcels that are not developable, but property, somebody may want additional land on their property, why not?
Well, I think, didn't the selectmen do that 15 or some number of years ago?
Absolutely.
I remember going through
Yeah,
that.
we did that.
You know, even the abutters weren't interested in it.
Well, why would they be interested if they don't have to pay taxes and they can still use a piece of property next to them on a town with big lots?
Yep, but they have to pay taxes on the property they bought as an
That's what I
undeveloped
mean.
lot.
Yeah.
And an undeveloped lot now has a fairly good size price tag on it. I know, I have one.
But now there's 15 years since then, or whatever it's been, and I assume that we've been acquiring through the usual means, the tax title or whatever, additional properties that maybe somebody would buy.
It doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt to take another look at that.
Yeah, I think it merits a close look.
I mean, even it could be a fact, I mean, if somebody had a certain amount of land and they wanted to add to their parcel so they could have the land area they needed to to do an addition on their house or something like that.
How about
So
enough
if you get
land
on
so
one
they
of
can,
those lists.
Yeah.
how about enough land so that they can put it into one of the farming or forestry?
That's what I just said, yeah.
We have to be careful what you do.
We don't.
I only need .3.
Okay, anything else, gents, at this stage?
Well, we had, did you want to?
Where do you go next? Where do you spend your energies next?
We have Mark Forcelli, who has had to resign,
Yeah,
and we have a candidate to suggest to you for your approval to take and fill out our committee. I think we have to do it in writing, I believe.
Heather Willis.
Heather Willis is the person.
She's expressed interest in joining our committee. She has real estate experience and is here in town.
so we still have a few leftover appointments to consider, right, David? And we can throw that into the batch when we do that next. If you do, he'll get him just some information.
Yeah, under the open meeting law, we can't just go ahead and
Right.
start voting
Absolutely.
appointments. It has to be on the agenda.
We'll follow the law.
And thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. And you mentioned just now real estate experience, and I wasn't on the board when you were charged, but is your charge restricted to disposal of real estate or anything? Are there other angles that you're pursuing?
We were just asked to come up with ideas, ways to raise revenue for the town. There were no, that's right.
Yeah, so again, where do you go from here?
That's a good question. We'll have to,
Because when you were first appointed, actually before my time, but I thought it was, and I came to one of your meetings before you got on, John,
yes.
and before you got on, Ed, I thought that expanding the scope of what you were doing, because you have good minds, you're new, fresh blood here, and, and on the other side, I've put on the table, I've mentioned briefly the thought of a larger, longer-term view of the financial challenges of the town and planning for those challenges. And so maybe we want to consider broadening their scope or finding ways that they could, that you could come to us thinking about how to broaden your scope beyond revenue ideas if you've hit your head against the wall at this stage. I would not be averse to having that discussion in the future if
Very
it works
nice.
for you guys,
We would be delighted if that is what you would like. So, yeah.
We're also working with, John Higley has requested us to work with the planning board to help them look at the downtown.
Because they're doing the big picture.
Yeah, so we can
Okay,
help on
yeah.
the dollar,
Okay,
on the financial side to
Yep.
do an analysis of what the impact would be.
yeah. Do you, Paul, or does anybody remember, what is the size of your committee? It's
Five.
Okay. Great.
You really have a very important job. We really need ways to relieve pressure on the property taxes here in town. And I wanted to thank all of you for coming forward and putting in a lot of effort. I can see from just the sheer size of all the work and the reports here that you've worked hard.
Been active.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks again. That's terrific. All right.
Should have been at our last meeting.
Yeah, I think I might rather have that across me than what's going in, but, oh, no. Yes.
I just wanted to So at the appropriate agenda time,
Cover that.
you're free to do a new appointment.
Great. Okay, we'll move along here. We want to do this borrowing.
Yeah, while Carol's here.
While
why
Carol's
don't we
here
get-
to witness that if we could, so we had that.
Dinner plans.
Okay. All right, David, you have the paperwork over there. Can you just briefly describe what we're we're being asked to approve by the treasurer here?
Well, basically, there were a number of items that were approved at the annual town meeting that were capital items. In order to access that money, we borrow it on a short-term basis. And those, once the projects are complete or the item is purchased, the next time we go to a long-term borrowing, which is probably January, February, something like that, they would long-term borrow those items.
You would bundle those into the long-term
Right. So
bond
the-
issue. Yep.
So the bond anticipation notes are usually very low interest, it's a 0.5%, something
Yeah.
like that. It's earning a little bit of money while it's in the bank, waiting for the project to be done. And you can usually, I think you can roll a bond anticipation note for like 3 years or
I see.
something
Yeah.
like that. But these projects, the largest project was the school renovation, but it includes the Pine Hill Access Road, transfer station upgrades, which was the fence and the containers we talked about, CMD dump truck, pickup truck, the crosswalk downtown, fire department HVAC, which is out to bid, and then fire department computer server, fire department vehicle, and school renovations and engineering study.
And those school renovations are Pine Hill only. Those do not include the regional renovations nor the air conditioning at the middle school. That's all done at the region. So just
Right,
just
that's
for
how it's
clarity,
voted, right,
just for
right,
clarification.
Yeah.
Great.
Great, so what do we have to do,
Do
Dave?
we have to do a specific motion, do we? Is that asked for?
Yes.
Can I just ask a question about the Pine Hill Road?
Yep.
The Peter Caruso Memorial Road?
Yeah. Where are we at?
Where are we at on that?
Well, it needs, some have talked about whether it needs an engineering study or not, but there was money included in there for an engineering piece to design that road. Ed has told me that it's not something that has to be done before school starts, that they can work on the road from the other entrance going up to the school with no interference to the school. So that's a discussion that I need to have with Ed. So I just need to touch base with him to see if he's already done something to select an engineering firm to design that road.
I would just urge you to do this sooner rather than later. This is for an emergency. It's supposed to cover us until we get a state grant, we get that funded, which is probably a year or two out. And so this is a short-term fix. If we don't do it fairly quickly, then it's
Right.
going to get tied up with the real road, which is coming a year or two from now.
Right now, it's not a project that I've put out to bid, but I will check to see what, if he's already made progress on that.
Yeah, because I'm with Paul, the sooner the better. That's a whole
It's the safety of our
sleep at
children.
night
Right.
issue, so.
We could make it a toll road and then we'd be raising revenue too.
There we
You
go.
can serve on so many committees, you know, it's incredible what you can bring to this table. Excellent.
All right, what's the motion?
The motion is right at the top in the bold, required motion.
Move to approve the sale of $790,419 bond anticipation loan with interest at the rate of 0.55% to Century Bank at par as negotiated by the treasurer.
Second. I'll second it, okay. Any further discussion?
Just to say that this is for the fire department vehicle, the fire department computer server, the fire department HVAC, which is a big ticket item, it's $153,000. The solar crosswalk sign, the CM&D dump truck, the CM&D pickup truck, the transfer station upgrades, and that's $80,000 there for that piece. The Pine Hill Emergency Access Road, that's $80,000 for that piece. School renovations, which is $310,000. An engineering study for Woodland Mill Goulding for $21,000, for a total of $790,419.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, so we have 3 things to sign there, I believe, and it's indicated, so.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, I'll start, and we're being witnessed by the town clerk.
She wasn't looking when you signed that first one, Peter, but now she's looking.
I,
Did you do it, Elvis?
All right, am I signing here,
you're
Peter?
signing, yep, please. I'll sign right over my signature. Great.
My pen just ran out of ink.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
I think there's a third one, right?
Yep. Here's the third one, Mike.
Okay.
Excellent. All right.
And then I think town clerk needs to sign the
She
bond.
needs to sign something, she knows.
Oh, yeah, we do all the.
You've done this before, right? I keep my eye on Paul because he's got my pen now.
Right.
Gotta be signing your name, everything.
There you go.
Thank you.
That'll be fine. All right, so that takes care of that item. Why don't we just nail the appointment of election workers here in case there's a question for Carol while she's here, which is the out-of-town gentleman, Mr. Whitman, so.
If I could,
I have a
Oh,
question
sure.
for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how is it that you approve the rest of the list but not this name?
He
he's not a town
Sherborn.
resident. He's not eligible to be
There were
approved.
other people on the list that are not in Sherborn.
Well, you gave us addresses for all those, Carol, that were in Sherborn. Every
This
single
one
one
had
of them is
Millis on it.
Sherborn.
Look at
Except
the
for
very
the,
first one.
Eleanor Kelly of
No,
463
on the
Kendall
first
Avenue.
page.
We
I don't have a
that.
first
We
aid
don't
page.
have that,
We just
so we
have
might
this
have missed
page.
it.
Oh, somebody gave you, whoever
May not
did
be
the
the
copying
both
must not have
sides.
done double-sided.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just have this, and the only one that doesn't say Sherburne.
There's another,
Says
a whole
Millis.
other side. But you
Well, we
also-
only appointed these people.
I'm sorry?
We have only voted to appoint these people on this page. So
Well-
if there's
Did we
a,
have, I
if
thought
there's
we had
another
two
It was a
pages.
bigger list
We had
last
2
time.
pages last time, which I
Let's see.
didn't clear
I
out
think
here.
about it.
And the first name on the list was Anthony April, and he lives in Walpole. And the cover letter that I gave
She's
you
right.
with that
That's
had
what we
the
approved last week.
statute for appointing
Right,
people
but we-
who, the statute now only reads a Massachusetts
it
voter.
doesn't, Carol, actually, no, it does not.
You did, I'm sorry.
I mean, you did give us a partial quote. What this is talking about, the paragraph you referred us to, is talking about students being appointed election officer.
Last time.
Is he a student, this person from Millis?
No, that talks about 16 and 17-year-olds.
That's right.
You have several of those on the list. But the same legislation also stated that to be election workers, voters need to be registered in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That's one of the 7 requirements for somebody who's 16 or 17 years of age. That's this statute reads and.
16 and 17-year-olds are not registered anywhere.
Well, all I'm telling you is they're residents of the Commonwealth, they're United States citizens when appointed, they're able to speak, read, and write English, have provided a letter from their parent or guardian, have provided a letter from their school principal, and agree to attend required training sessions. So that's for 16 and 17-year-olds.
Right.
Okay, and the other provision we talked about says that the selectmen can appoint, as election officers, registered voters in the Commonwealth, except as other provided in this section.
Registered voters in the Commonwealth. It
Okay.
no longer stipulates within the town.
Okay, so that's a different paragraph then. But we were relying on your language here, which says, it must be old language. It's probably not updated, right?
That could well be.
5412.
You have to look at the footnote to see.
Was that footnote there
Yeah,
last time?
Yes, yes, same copy of that.
Okay, good.
But we just had 2 sides the last time. so I
But
don't
the
remember how
problem
we
is
did our
that's
vote.
not the statute.
That's not it.
No, but if
The
that's the
statute
case.
that's here, that's quoted here says they have to be registered voters of the town.
Right. But what Carol's saying is that was amended, and the amendment, which looks like it dates to 2006.
But the amendment at the bottom says paragraph 4 now allows,
Right,
but what's quoted is paragraph 3,
that's right.
which was not amended.
And paragraph 3 was amended to say Commonwealth in 2006, so this is a very old letter. It's not the current statute.
But why don't we get the current statutes downstairs?
It's
I'm
right
going
here,
to
Paul.
bid
you
you
have it.
gentlemen good evening as I'm a half hour
Lawyers.
late.
Pay attention.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to count on is accurate information from people who are asking for appointments.
Last time you did understand that Tony was a town employee at that. So I think last
Okay, that
time,
probably is
you
why I
know,
went
you
through.
recognized him as being an
An
out-of-town
employee.
resident
Yep.
and moved forward with it as a town employee.
I think it's,
Right.
I mean, I still have the question, I'm sorry Carol left, I still have the question why she's asking us to appoint someone who doesn't live in town as an election worker in Sherborn.
Well, I think that's, you know, something that the board, it's definitely a policy decision.
Why did Carol leave?
I think she said she had dinner.
Oh,
Don't quote that.
Well, I see from the statute that indeed paragraph 3 was amended, just as Michael said, and it does now say any registered voter of the Commonwealth, where it used to say, what's quoted in her memo.
It's apparently was amended 7 years ago, and the memo was not updated, so we were going on bad information the last time, I think.
well, do we have any issues with appointing this person, even though we don't know why we would have somebody from out of town that's not an employee?
I guess my question is, I mean, David points out that they're paid for the election work, and there seem to be an awful lot of people on that list. I'm wondering why we're being asked to appoint somebody from out of town as a Sherborn election worker.
But I
And
think
apparent-
that's a fair question, that we should give priority to people
Right.
in Sherborn who want to serve.
Now, I understand he used to be a Sherborn resident, so maybe
he's
that's the answer.
experienced election worker, just lives in Millis now. Right. I mean, I don't have a problem with him.
Okay,
I mean, it's a philosophical question because sometimes communities won't appoint a non-resident to any board, committee, or serving.
Well, I think there's two
Others
issues. One, we were given obsolete information, basically, on this
Also.
form,
Yeah,
what we were
the other
requested.
question I have, Peter, and I didn't pick this up the last time, but Paul
Okay.
has the statute, and now we'll go back to reading law. I feel like we're a panel of appellate judges here instead of the Board of Selectmen, but
I just feel like I'm a rose.
yeah, you are. But what it says is, we shall annually appoint as election officers for each voting place, one warden, one deputy warden, one clerk, one deputy clerk, 2 inspectors, 2 deputy inspectors. I don't know that those are these people. It looks like these people are the election officers, but I'm not certain the election officers are the same as poll workers. So I'm not really sure what we're appointing, but I know we haven't appointed any deputy warden, clerk, deputy clerk, 2 inspectors, or 2 deputy inspectors.
Does that say that that's your appointment, or is it the
It
clerk's?
says the selectmen of every town shall annually appoint as election officers for each voting place, except as provided.
didn't have that in our
One
list
warden,
of
one deputy warden, no. And so I think there's a lot of confusion over what we're supposed to be doing.
There was a list of, that was on this giant appointment spreadsheet that I've been working from.
I'm
Peter has, because he never
And-
throws anything
Because
out.
I didn't clear out my folder.
I was told that a number of those were direct town clerk appointments.
Oh, they may be, let me see.
Well, I don't know if this is the complete list or just the sections we've had for meetings. This is an early version of it.
But the
No,
point
there
Michael
are
is
there are
making,
registrars who are town clerk, that's different than election workers.
Michael is suggesting that
That were
they should be
incomplete.
categorized as
I mean,
deputies.
just, Paul, you can look at this, you know how to read municipal law, so that's, if you look at the first paragraph, that's where I'm going by. So I'm reluctant to do any more approvals of poll workers until we straighten this out and see what we should have
Yeah,
approved
I agree
and who
with
we
that.
should have approved.
We appoint one warden, did we?
No, we have appointed no officers,
One deputy warden,
as
did
far
we?
as I'm aware. David, do you have that
I don't
list?
have the sheet.
I don't
One
have it.
clerk, one deputy clerk, 2 inspectors, 2 deputy inspectors.
Now, maybe this is how it's been done for a long time, I don't know, but yeah, I don't see them here.
The appointment spreadsheet listed some, but I thought it was just
I don't have the complete.
There are
registrars.
registrars who are-
Registrars.
Yeah, registrars are different, we're not talking about registrars.
So I don't know where those officers
I don't
get
know either.
appointed
And I
from.
don't see them here. Wouldn't we have listed them in this thing, I wonder?
I don't know.
Of appointed officers and officials?
Well, do our election workers even listed here?
No, I didn't find them.
Poll workers? No. me see. Well, this is, I think the answer, they do get paid, so they're either,
Well, they may be listed as having been paid in the back.
they're either employees or
That's-
they're,
And not more than two
Separate.
can be 16 or 17. Do we know how many? I think she said some were 16 and 17. How many are there?
we don't know that
No
either,
idea.
Paul. I think we were going on faith, and I'm not sure we have enough information to continue on faith. I would move that we postpone this appointment until we
Second.
have information, either
All
from
those in-
town council or from the clerk, or both, or from David.
Is she outside that we could ask?
She's-
She's left?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to defer until we have further information that David will work out with the town clerk and perhaps town council, what we should be doing here based on current statute. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Just so I
Good catch.
understand, you want clarification on those other positions on when they actually
I
come
think
to you for?
there's a few things. First of all, that statute's very detailed and tells you exactly who you're supposed to be appointing. And so if we're supposed to be appointing certain officers, and as it says there, we should know whether she has recommendations of officers, or are we just supposed to appoint those officers on our own? And secondly, David?
Okay. Yeah.
Secondly, we should get some rationale for appointing an out-of-town resident. I guess, if the rationale is he's worked on the polls a long time and he used to live here, maybe that's good enough, but I'm curious what the rationale is. And third is, if we're only supposed to appoint, as Paul just pointed out, two who are 16 or 17 years old, can she confirm who it is on that list that's 16 or 17 to make sure we haven't actually appointed more than two people?
Perfect. Okay. Great, well, we have two more things on the agenda then as we move along, and good catch, Mike and Paul. It's nice to have attorneys on the at the table.
You say that
I'll
now,
keep saying
Peter.
that, but, if I say it often enough, I'll believe it. No. So, speaking of attorneys, let's go to consideration of town council retainer, and I did review what Petrini has put forth to us on their proposal here, and understood David got some further information for us, and so, just for the folks that may be interested, the town council is gonna keep their standard retainer value the same of $55,000. That's the same we had last fiscal year.
But they increased it last year, just for
They
the
did
start.
increase it from 2012, from 50,000 to 55,000, that's correct.
There was
So,
a statement in here that their rates have stayed the same for 3 years, and that's true for the hourly.
for the
piece.
hourly rate, right,
Their retainer did
The
go up.
retainer did
That's right.
increase.
yeah. So they did, the retainer's gone up they've served us for basically 3+ years. They used 50,000 in the first 2+ years. They were just 55,000. Now they're they're suggesting they keep it at 55 for this contract year. We've been actually beating them in terms of, on average, we've obtained roughly $15,000 more services than the retainer for the regular town services. We do pay them at the hourly rates for additional services outside the scope of the retainer, which they've defined, and I found no issues. I did question whether there were anything we wanted to try to push into the scope of the retainer versus outside the scope, but I really didn't see anything in terms of how they spelled it out that would suggest that we change the scope of the retainer items. They are asking for a modest increase of $10 to each of the hourly rates that they've put forth. And that's their first increase in that since they've been serving us. And, you guys are in the business, you would look at those rates and be able to assess whether those are reasonable for this type of service they're providing. To me, it looks reasonable from other legal rates I've seen for legal services. So, having said all that, and subject to any comments or questions you guys may have, I would actually, I'm prepared to move forward on approving this contract, because I also think it's better not to change horses in midstream. They have a pretty good knowledge base of all the activities they've been involved in. They've served us very well, I think. I think they're responsive, and the quality of the work has been good that I've seen from sitting up here. So any comments you guys may have?
Yeah, I have some.
You want to go first? Go ahead.
First, I agree that they have provided good service to the town, and I am satisfied. They have worked well with not only the board, but with other boards and committees in the town. So I'm pleased with their services. So that would be point number one. Point number two, the rates that they are proposing to charge are higher than the prevailing hourly rates for this kind of work. There are attorneys who are senior to them who charge less. And my third comment would be that there's some language in this agreement that I find troubling and wanted to delete. Those language issues were two sentences that occur in two different places. The first under the retainer, which says the law firm reserves the right to increase the annual retainer by 5% per year beginning July 1, 2014, assuming renewal of this agreement.
Right.
That's putting us on notice that they're going for a 5% increase in retainer
Next year.
next year. Now 5% of 50,000 is 2,500. 55,000 is a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to agree or disagree on that. That's something I think that the next board next year should consider, given the circumstances
Yep.
that apply at that time. So I'd like to delete that sentence.
Well, I noticed the same, and I agree with you.
And then there's a second sentence, it's almost identical, where it's on page 4, top of the
Yep.
page, where it says the law firm reserves the right to increase the hourly rates by $5 per timekeeper annually for hourly legal services, assuming renewal of this agreement. And again, if we do nothing, this agreement renews, and they'll just increase the rate by $5. So I think that sentence should come out.
Yep.
Right.
Then going back to my second point, which I think the rates are,
High, yeah.
High.
Higher, yep.
I would propose to respond with an agreement to give them a $5 increase rather than a $10 increase. Even at a $5 increase,
They're still higher.
they're still well above. I know, we had a lawyer from Copeland and Page on this board for a long time, and I know, and feel free to consult with him if you'd
Yeah.
like, but I know his firm would be happy to do the work for Sherborn for rates
Yeah.
well below these rates. So these are on the high side. I buy their argument that it's been 3 years and they should have an increase. So let's give them an increase of $5, and then we can look at another $5 a year from now.
With a different board or whatever, yep.
Right,
The
so
next board, yeah.
I would, and again, this is their offer to us. They said they're asking for $10, and rather than just agreeing to it, I would suggest go back, see if we can settle at 5.
Yeah.
If they say absolutely not, we're gonna quit, we're gonna leave, we're out of here, then we can always reconsider.
Good that you made that clear on television, Paul. Hopefully they won't watch the the YouTube video of this meeting, but that's okay. That's the downside of an open meeting on these kinds of issues, I guess.
Well, it is. Again, I'm satisfied with them, but
It's the reality, though.
but I know that I can get lawyers of the same caliber at
Yeah, a lower rate,
a lower rate.
yeah.
I don't want to do that. There is something to be said, as Peter said, with continuity and all of that,
Right.
so I don't want to do that. But I think they're pushing the rates.
Yeah, I don't have as much concern about the rates. I'm fine with the bargaining strategy you talked about. I had one other I did note those 2 points, and I agree with you on the automatic renewals. I had one other language concern, and that is on page 5, the middle of the first paragraph. It says, this is a paragraph about us terminating their services for some reason. It says, any such termination shall not be effective for at least 30 days after notice to the law firm. As a client, we should be able to fire
At will?
our lawyers at will,
Right.
and I don't think we should commit to a 30-day notice provision.
Yeah, in fact, that's illegal.
That's my point.
So
Good catch.
just strike that sentence altogether is what
Yeah,
you're
it's,
proposing?
I think it's contrary to the professional ethics to
Okay.
agree to something like that. They probably accidentally had it in based on some other contract language they saw or something.
All right. Any other comments?
Are you actually looking to vote to approve
No,
this
well,
with
not now,
those
based on
amendments,
this. I think
or-
now that we would best task you with saying the board wants to strike those 3 sentences. And
I had one
will
more.
they, great, Mike has more. And also see about the $5
Well,
rate
we
versus
can
that.
vote to agree that if David can negotiate
Yeah,
those changes,
okay.
we'll approve the contract. I just had one typo, David, in paragraph 9, the 3rd line, it says board of committee. It should say board or committee.
Second paragraph?
First paragraph,
paragraph.
3rd line, board, it should say
Or.
board or
Board
committee.
or.
Yeah.
Okay, and I do want to, town council did offer to
Be
be
present.
here
Yes,
for
right, yes.
questions. And then I told them that it was going to be a discussion, so I don't know if you want them to come back or
Well,
not.
I would move to approve this contract with the changes
Second.
that we just requested.
Okay.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor?
So that way, if you can negotiate these changes, it's approved, and if not, come back to us and
If
tell us
not-
what the issues are, if
Right.
any.
And bring
And we can
them
sign
for-
it.
And bring them in.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. Well done there. All right, so I think all we have left, Paul, is to talk about the acknowledgement of Doug Cassell and what he's done. If you wanted to talk about that a little further, Paul, that would be great.
Yes, I want to sing the praises of a citizen of the town who stepped forward and on his own has been working to benefit the town. He has put in an incredible amount of hours to assemble a variety of documents to accumulate the knowledge the town has about Farm Pond. And he has prepared a document entitled Administrative History of Farm Pond. And he has prepared a document relating to the goose or geese problem at Farm Pond. These are all, and there are other documents that he's assembled, including copies of statutes and deeds and rules and regulations over time. So this represents a comprehensive history of one of the great assets of the town. And that he did it on his own, without being compensated, without being asked, is exactly the kind of thing that needs, I think, some recognition, some praise. And we encourage people in Sherborn who care about our community to do these kinds of things. And Doug did this, and he deserves our thanks.
Absolutely, that's great.
Great.
Yeah, where might this information be found? Are we able to put it on the website, I wonder?
I sent it to all of you, it's up to you.
Yeah, I would put it,
You all
let's,
have a copy, and it's an ongoing process, he still continues to update that document. But it's like 400 pages or something, and so I don't know how you, but it should be somewhere on the website or something,
Yes.
some link or something,
We can,
you know, let's arrange
we'll figure out a way to do that, yep.
how to, you know, so that other people can have, you know, students or anybody who's
Sure.
interested can have access to it.
Great.
Very good.
Will he have a copy at the library, I wonder?
Right now, I think what he has is a DVD
I see.
or a CD or whatever.
Of
it
all the
is.
documents, so if somebody wanted to print it out, they could, but that's a lot of,
Well, yeah.
dead trees.
Yeah. I don't know, you'd have to talk to him about the best way to handle that, because he's still working on a lot
I
of
see, it's a
pieces
work in
of it,
progress.
too.
Yeah.
It's still, history is continuing.
But it's an important part of the records of the town, so I would like to see it
Yeah.
available at the selectman's office. If we can at least print it out and maybe have a DVD there for
I
some.
don't know about printing it, but, have some access. I know that he's given it to Betsy Johnson, so.
Okay, good.
historian's got it.
That's great.
perfect.
I would like a copy.
I'll send you the link.
Well, if we can get it up on the website, that would be, or a link to it of some sort, that would be great,
That would be
without
good.
tying up too much space. That'd be great. Okay, that's all I had.
Move to adjourn?
Second. All in favor? Well done, gents. Take care of that back, Paul. Mike, great to see you as always. Tell Deb to carry her keys with her at all times.
Exactly.
Woodhaven is assessed